turnover, building relationships in the workforce. When I started to read about how pervasive trauma is and what it is, it all started to make sense. So Red Oak began a trauma-informed journey with an organization called the National Council of Behavioral Health out of Washington in order to become an organization that practiced trauma-informed principles. So what we're going to talk about today is not only what is trauma, but we're going to talk about what it's like to be trauma-informed within our organization, within your organization. And within that, we're going to talk about resiliency and self-care. Sally, if we could go back to the definition, thank you so much. Trauma is an emotional or physical response to experiencing an event or witnessing an event that is dangerous, frightening, or life-threatening. That is the American psychological definition of trauma. I thought it was important that we really, because trauma, it's a word that can be thrown around. We really need to understand what we're talking about. Next slide, please. So what is trauma informed? We're an organization that currently is undergoing trauma informed coaching. We have a team of trauma informed participants. We are asking our entire organization to become trauma informed. So what does that mean to you and to me? And I am going to move my picture out of the way so I can read my slides. What is a trauma informed approach? It realizes the widespread impact of trauma. It understands that it is something we can recover from. It recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma in our clients, maybe in your customers, maybe in families that you work with, and more importantly, for some of you, your staff. And we respond by fully integrating knowledge of trauma into our policies, procedures, and practices within our workplace to positively impact our staff as well as the folks that we serve. And we seek to actively resist re-traumatizing anyone who shares with us their trauma experience. Next slide, please. What I want to talk about just for a minute are some of the things that you might be seeing out at your workplace and your community, the differences between the different kinds of trauma. We talk about secondary trauma, which is also known as compassion fatigue. It's emotional duress that could result from hearing another person's firsthand story. So somebody may want to share something with you and it gives you a traumatic experience just from hearing that. You might see things on TV, but over time, it can lead to what we call vicarious traumatization. And that's an accumulative effect on the person who has constant exposure to trauma, our first responders, our healthcare workers, our mental health care folks, some of our teacher folks that are on the front lines of dealing with the public, and especially a public that really struggles with coping, maybe with their just the basic needs of existing. It can really take its toll on those folks. Indirect exposure can also lead to what we call burnout. And it's a form of mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion caused by work-related stress. And of course, a lot of people are experiencing that right now. We hear about Zoom fatigue. We hear about that burnout. We're hearing about turnover. We're hearing about dissatisfaction. We're hearing about low morale, pandemic-related, uncertainty related, those kinds of things. So we're going to talk about how we're going to build resilience in our staff, our families, the people that we're maybe living with in order to combat some of that burnout. Next slide, please. Some of the warning, you're perfect. Some of the warning signs of burnout that you might want to think about when you look at some of these behaviors and symptoms. Maybe you know somebody who thinks the worst in every situation. They react disproportionately to the situation, whether you under or overreact. There are folks who never take a vacation. Oh, I just can't get away. I'm so busy, just can't get away. Forgetting why you do your job in the first place. Where's your passion? Where's your compassion? Why are you here? Decreased performance or productivity, constantly not getting enough sleep. And what I find interesting about that is oversleeping too. Folks that say they don't get enough sleep sometimes are oversleeping and they appear overly fatigued and tired. Increasing arguments with family, even neighbors, friends, and decreasing your social life, becoming somewhat withdrawn. Next slide. So resiliency. If I can ask you to take one thing away from today's presentation, it would be resiliency. I do believe that building resiliency, having resiliency, ability to cope with a great deal of stress is going to keep us moving in the right direction. Resilience is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. For those folks of you who are older enough to remember, I love the quote from Timex, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And that's what we're talking about with resiliency. We're able to look at situations and make the best of it based on our coping skills. If we don't have the coping skills, well, we're going to talk about how do we build those in ourselves and in others. Next slide, please. So building resiliency individually and organizationally. And I know a lot of you folks, are in organizations and you've heard of trauma-informed care and you've heard about trauma-informed principles, but how do you get those into your workplace, and how do you get those to your staff, and how do you get those within yourself? So we talk about 4 things. We talk about expectations, realistic ones for yourself and realistic ones for other people. We talk about boundary setting, know what you can say yes to. We talk about culture, big word out in the work world, staff culture, connecting with colleagues in a way that heals. And then of course, your own self-care through your mind, your spirit, your strength, and your heart. Let's break those down. Next slide, please. Understanding your expectations. If we were in person right now, I would stop and ask you to give some feedback. What are some answers to these very difficult questions? So I'm going to ask you to take these back with you wherever you work or wherever you volunteer, and start to really take a look at this. So what positive role do expectations play in your life? What impact have unrealistic self-expectations had on your well-being? What are you imposing upon yourself that is completely unrealistic? What has the impact been of others putting unrealistic expectations on you? I can't possibly get all this done. And how do you assess if expectations are set at a helpful aspirational level so they don't become into the overwhelmed category or the burnout category or feeling bitter or having low morale? Yeah, Carrie, that's a great point. If you have questions, or you have an answer that you want to share with the group, or you feel like you have something that you want to share and get some feedback on, absolutely. That's what we would be doing if we were all together right now. So talking about expectations. Next slide. So understanding your own expectations, questions to ask yourself. To be a trauma-informed organization, we build on our strengths, not on our problems. It's all about what are your resilient assets? What are your strengths? So what are my strengths? What has helped me through difficult times before? Certainly COVID has been, more than any of us expected. How many times in the last, since our year-long anniversary is coming up, have you heard, I thought this would be over in 2 weeks, my goodness. And here we are. What healthy things can I do to soothe myself when I'm faced with uncertainty? What are my resources to increase my resilience? And so important is to ask, what is strong with me rather than what is wrong with me? We have to start thinking in terms of our strengths rather than our deficits. Next slide, please. So who are these resilient souls out there? Who are these people that we feel, kind of role model for us, or exemplify? What is a resilient person? Well, there's somebody who's healthy and strong, and they're connected, big word, connected to social resources such as family, culture, community, and peers. Resilient people aren't isolated. They're independent, but they're not isolated. Positive future orientation. They have a commitment to work and to learning, a commitment to things that they get involved with. They have a great deal of empathy. They feel like they can walk in other people's shoes. I've been there. I know how hard this is. Empowerment and self-control, a lot of emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, the ability to, manage how you're thinking, feeling, and behaving, the continuity that that poses. They stay calm, composed, good sense of humor, and again, that emotional regulation. Having a spiritual perspective or faith. I know the principles of AA talk to us all the time about faith, believing in something, that higher power. So whether it's a religious faith or just faith in humanity, having that faith, having that strong internal locus of control as opposed to an external locus of control. I had a dear friend many years ago who would ask his clients repeatedly, who has to change to make you feel better? Because a lot of the folks that we see come in to a therapy or a therapeutic setting, and it's about what other people need to do to make them feel better. If they would just, if he would just, if she would do, as opposed to saying, what do I need to do? So you want to ask yourself, what do I need to do to make myself feel better? These folks are confident and optimistic. They have adaptability to staying well, and they live healthy lifestyles and focus on staying well. Here we are, what is it, February 17th, how many folks have stopped going to the gym? How many folks have stopped eating things that they know they should? They let that stuff go because it is hard. Oh, Lord have mercy, it is hard. But commitment to that healthy lifestyle and staying focused. Next slide. Okay. Compassionate boundary setting. These are things we need to do at work, folks. These are our, learning to say no or learning to say yes, whatever your thing is. So we find that zone of helpfulness, and you think of it in terms of a continuum, under involved or over involved. We have folks that just stay under involved. They don't get involved in anything. Don't get involved in anything. Then we have folks who get over involved. They want to be involved in everything, want to know what's going on. And then there's that zone of helpfulness. And you have to ask yourself, to be in the zone of helpfulness at work, at home, at your church, what behavior would demonstrate this? What behavior would show I'm in the zone of helpfulness? Next slide, please. Some of our tips for compassionate boundary setting, and I know we need to do this. We need to be able to set our boundaries with other people. I can't tell you how many times I got to quit saying yes, or I'm over involved, over committed. What am I going to do? You won't believe my day when I get home. So just a few hints, know what you want to say yes to in your life. What, as you grow and develop, what are your priorities? Be proactive, have meetings to discuss boundaries. At work, you can bring people together or do on the Zoom call, and you can have these meetings to discuss what we need to do, what boundaries we need to set. I know Megan, our CEO, she encourages us to set boundaries all the time. You can't do everything perfect all the time. Number 3, just say it. Just upfront, obviously respectfully, but don't make people guess at what you're trying to communicate with them. Simple, direct language. Pointing out problems in the moment. Violations is a strong word, you're violating, but you want to say in the moment, hey, can we talk about what just happened, rather than let it go and go home and go, you're not going to believe what happened today. Give explanations that are specific and relevant to someone. Offer shared solutions. Come to the table with ideas and back up your boundary with action. If you give in, you invite people to ignore your needs. So if you're going to draw a boundary, you're going to want to do it respectfully, compassionately, but you're going to want to do it assertively. Next slide. Boundary language. Being able to say this in the workplace. And I just gave a few examples of ideas for your workplace or volunteer organization. Setting a boundary with a colleague that complains too much. Yep. We have those everywhere, people that complain too much, people that talk too much, people that joke too much. Something to say is I'm working on showing up with good energy, in this case for my clients, and I find talking too much about what I can't control makes it hard for me. Let's switch topics. Ideas for angry colleagues. I want to work with you, but it'd be hard if our brains are not calm enough to think, how about we take 5? Those kinds of things. And of course, that's all about you staying calm. One of my favorite quotes that Megan, our CEO, gave to me a long time ago, and I try to remember this when I get myself going in the wrong direction, is between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. Our response lies our growth and our freedom. And if you can remember that between your stimulus and your response, there's opportunity to be quiet, to be meditative, to be calm, that will help you grow tremendously. Some ideas saying no to extra commitments. Although our team goals are really important to me, I need to discuss what could come off my plate. What they're talking about here is balance. Oh my goodness, is that a big deal right now? How do I balance working full time? How do I balance my family? A lot of you guys have kids. You're running all over the place. I watch the parents that are here in the office run out of here, and I always laugh. I think their hair's on fire because they've got 15 things to go. They haven't even started their workday, and they're already exhausted and busy. Balance. Next slide, please. Something I encourage you to take back to your teams. It's a healthy team culture. These might be some kind of agreements that when you get together with your meetings, again, be it Zoom, be it in person, whatever you do, be welcoming to all through our words. It's so nice when people say, "Hi, Ann. Hey, it's good to see you." Call people by their name. Seek to understand others' opinions. Set aside your judgments. Demonstrate approachability, active listening. You know, what is the statement? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Focus on the positive. What is working? Engage in each other's wisdom and strength. You'd be amazed at what your colleagues have to say. You just ask and listen. Offer to assist team members and respond when help is needed and requested. Speak up when we see problems. Bring a solution-focused attitude. You know, anybody can bring a problem to the table, but bringing a solution to the table is such a refreshing way of speaking. Hold ourselves accountable with grace. We use that word a lot around Red Oak. We must have grace with each other. Monitor and care for your well-being to support your team and your organization, and connect through common feelings. Try to relate to each other through common feelings, situations, experiences. Again, we're talking about a team culture that resonates with cooperation, respect, and grace. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about building your resilience and building my resilience through self-care. The best way to combat the trauma, the collective trauma associated with COVID-19, is to build resilience for yourself and for your organization. Resilience, again, the ability to bounce back when things are really hard. First thing, of course, counselor. Talk about what you're going through with others. It's okay. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you anything other than brave and courageous to say, I'm not okay. You know, I'm not doing okay. Maybe I'll be okay tomorrow, but today, can we talk about it? Really prioritize your exercise. I know exercise, eating right, sleeping enough. Yeah. But really, really prioritize your exercise. 30 minutes a day, if you can do it. I know I go to exercise group and I really look forward to it now. It's not such a burden because I've made it a priority. Learn from others who you see as role models of resiliency, people that seem to always be coping well. Why is she always looking so good? Look at her. She always seems to have it together. You know, find out what's going on with her. Try to avoid catastrophic thinking. You know, this will always be this way. This will never get better. Those awfulizing and catastrophizing statements. And something that, a mantra that, you know, I say to myself all the time is it's going to be okay, because it always is. And this won't last forever. Things will get better. People have been through worse. Things could be worse. It's gonna be okay. Take a break from the media. Boy, at the beginning of COVID, didn't everybody run home? We turned on that television to find out something, whether it was going to get better or going to get worse. But nowadays, I'm hearing more and more people saying, you know, I need to take a break from that constant media, whether it be the television or the social media. I don't do social media because mostly I don't know how, but the television, we really need to turn it off. Keeping your life simple, super simple, simpler the better. Practice relaxation, deep breathing, mindfulness, yoga. A simple relaxation technique that you folks can use right now is, how many folks don't have both of their feet on the floor? If you want to find a way to ground yourself to the earth, feel a little bit more relaxed, put both your feet on the floor and push. Push those heels deep. Keeps you connected. And of course, engage in hobbies and creativity. That research shows over and over, people that have hobbies and interests and share them with others have really terrific mental health. Does anyone here practice relaxing like yoga, mindfulness, and breathing? I know I do. Just take it a minute. Breathe in through the nose 4 seconds, out through the mouth. It's a tremendous way of just bringing that body down and being in the moment. Yes.
I see 4 people gave us a thumbs up. So I know last month, I see another one. I know last month we had a speaker talking about, we did a quick breathing exercise. That's something that they can see on YouTube if they have it, but I know that was something that we really talked about. Yeah, keep breathing when you're driving. That's always definitely a good thing to do.
That's a good one, Polly. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Yes.
Well, Carrie, I tried to be mindful of my time because I know you guys need to, Doctor has some more things to talk to us about. I certainly be glad to take questions. Everybody has my contact information at Summit County Safety Council. You feel free to call me, email, no, not a problem. If you want to know more about trauma-informed approaches or how your organization can use some of those practices, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right. I see we're asking for copies of the PowerPoint.
Sure.
And I know that Sally's going to include that when she sends out the playback. So that is good. I see one person clapping. So if
how
you guys
cute.
didn't hear me at the beginning, you can go to reactions at the bottom. Look at all those clapping now. Everybody's clapping. That's wonderful. If you do have questions, Anne, are you going to stick around while the doctor
Yes.
talks?
Yes.
And then, okay, so you could ask her, answer afterwards. I can talk. Dr. Dumford, if you want to share your screen, I know you said you had a PowerPoint. If you want to go ahead and get that queued up, and we're excited to hear what you have to say. You're on mute still.
Okay, sounds good. Actually, when I went to share screen, it says it's still disabled for screen sharing. So,
hold on, let me. Sally, can you make him a co-host? That's why. I know. I thought she had a hard time finding you in the thing.
Oh, okay.
Sally, do you? Oh, I see Sally's screen. If you want to start talking, and then if
I'll just start and then we'll see.
I think I did make him a co-host, but
he's not listed as one.
Okay.
No, that's all right. I'll just start going, and then we can kind of catch up with things. So thank you very much for having me. My name is Don Dumford. I'm one of the staff physicians at Akron General on the infectious disease staff, and one of my roles is as the medical director for infection prevention. And one of the nice things about that role is that I get to have a chance to educate the community in this sort of situation. So thanks for having me today. Looking forward to share some knowledge and answer questions about the vaccines. I think just to start off, we sort of think, where are we now? Where were we a year ago? And I agree with Anne that I really didn't think it was going to get this bad. As of this time last year, we had no cases in Ohio. We only had 12 cases across the U.S. And right now we're up to 100 million cases, 110 million cases worldwide, 28 million cases in the U.S., which actually the CDC came out last week and said that they actually think we're only catching about 1 in every 4 cases, just because a lot of people are flying under the radar of not having symptoms or having very mild symptoms. Or some people just aren't getting tested because they say, oh, my family member's positive, then I got symptoms, so I know it's COVID. Why go through the testing? So we know there's at least 28 million cases, if not more. In Ohio, we just recently hit just almost a million cases. We're at 940,000 cases right now. The good thing with all these numbers is that we are actually starting to finally see a downtrend in the number of cases. So we went from a peak of about 10,000 cases per day in Ohio. Now we're seeing about 2,500 to 3,500 cases per day. So it's great to see that coming down. It's a real relief in the hospital because our nurses, speaking of resilience, our nurses have been very resilient during this. I know this has been a very trying time on them, just with how busy we've been in the hospital. So I think the big thing to talk about here is more, about the vaccines. So everybody's asking, what's going on with the vaccines? Do they work? Are they safe? Excuse me. So I think first off, just the first question is, why do we need the vaccines? And the reason is we're trying to get to this point that we call herd immunity, where we have enough people in the population that are immune to the virus, so it actually stops circulating. And the thought has been that number with the current coronavirus with COVID is that we need to have about 75% of people to be immune to stop the spread of the infection. And we could wait to get there till through natural means by everybody getting infected. We've already had over 400,000 people die from the infection. At one point, I was really worried about our healthcare system, just with the number of people who are coming in. I think if we let things run their course naturally, we're looking at that happening again. And I just think there's so much morbidity and mortality that goes with this virus. That to let it sort of run its course to get to that point where the pandemic fizzles out on its own, it's going to take a long time to get there. A lot of people are going to be suffering from it. So the vaccine really is our best step to be able to get back to normal. And I think if we go the other route, we're to say let it run its course, we'd be looking at not being back to normal life for probably another 4 or 5 years. So the first thing to think about when we're thinking about the vaccines and talking about kind of how they work and are they safe is just thinking how a virus works itself first. So a virus comes in, it injects itself into a cell. It actually commandeers the protein making machinery of a cell, and then creates its own a cluster of viruses that then busts open through the cell, goes to the next cell, and does the same thing. So what we're trying to do with these vaccines is actually use a similar sort of mechanism where we're injecting a small piece of what's called messenger RNA that's going to then cause the body to then make the protein that looks like what's called the spike protein for COVID, which is what attached to our cells, but it doesn't have the rest of it that goes with it that causes illness. So you inject the vaccine, this messenger RNA makes this small tiny piece of protein, and then the body reacts to that and it makes antibodies. So then when COVID actually comes in with all its machinery to get you sick, then your body's ready to respond to it instead of having to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the body to make its own antibodies. So between the two sets of viruses we have available or about to have available, we've got the just plain messenger RNA virus, where you inject this piece of messenger RNA in a small fat, pretty much just several molecules of fat, so it kind of protects that, so it can actually get into the cell. Or the other option with the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca is that it's actually in a very weakened adenovirus, so a type of virus that causes the common cold. And then so you put that little piece of RNA in there, it gets injected, the RNA comes out, and then the same process happens. So we found them to be very effective. As everybody's probably heard in the news, is that both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are 95% effective. So if you look between the two, or in the studies they did, they took 20,000 people per either getting salt water versus getting the vaccine, and the Pfizer versus 15,000 Moderna. and they found that there was 95% less people in the group that got the vaccines got COVID, which is phenomenal. We look at a good flu vaccine year being about 60%, so 95% is just fantastic to actually see that kind of effectiveness. So then everybody always asks is are they safe? Am I going to get side effects from the vaccine when I get the vaccine? I can actually tell you from personal experience that you're very likely to get some side effects after the vaccine. So with my second dose of the Moderna vaccine, I was up all night with chills. The next day I didn't have a fever, but I was feeling very sluggish. But it all resolved about 24 hours after my vaccine. By 24 hours after the vaccine, I was back to feeling just about 100%. Whereas opposed to if you get COVID, people are feeling poorly for at least a week, if not sometimes months. Some of the, about 50% of people still have some symptom 5 to 6 months out after it. So side effects are common. Most people will get those flu-like side effects after more commonly the second dose than the first dose. The vaccine's been found to be very safe though. There were, if you compare that placebo group versus the people that got the vaccine, there was not an increase in the number, we say, serious safety events. So there weren't a lot of neurologic complications. There weren't a lot of immunologic complications that led to people being severely ill. We were just limited to those side effect type of effects that we had. Other things that I figure people always ask is, if I've had COVID, when can I get my vaccine? The CDC says, they've sort of gave the recommendations that you can wait up to 3 months after you've had COVID to get the vaccine. But as soon as you're feeling better, you can go on and get it, because they still get some benefit from the getting that immune boost right afterwards. So that's sort of the time frame. I see a question from Nick about how long the vaccine will be effective. So that's what we're still trying to determine right now. We know right now from the studies that we think immunity lasts for at least 5 months. Of course, we don't have much data beyond that, since these studies were done over the summer. We're really looking at just having 5 to 6 months of data right now. So we don't know exactly how long it's going to be. My guess is going to be that this will end up being a yearly vaccine. If you look at this cluster of viruses, the coronaviruses, typically immunity stays strong for about 3 to 6 months. And then after that 3 to 6 months, your antibody levels start to drop down. So the vaccine would expect to have a similar effect. So I'm expecting that we'll, as we hear further reports, we'll start to hear that around 6 months, we start to see those antibody levels go down. And that ultimately this will probably end up being a yearly vaccine with the flu vaccine. It probably won't be actually together, but maybe you'll go in, you'll get flu vaccine on one side, COVID vaccine on the other side. But that would be my guess, is it'll be a yearly vaccine. Other questions that I thought might be relevant are, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, can you still get the vaccine? It's been found to be still safe to get. Obviously, talk with your obstetrician before that. The other questions are, why is it so difficult to schedule right now? And I think that's just that we're looking at a very complex process with a multiple levels of having to get through the distribution process. There's a lot of people trying to get a new product all at once, so that's why it's been so difficult. I think be patient as you start to get into the if you're in one of the groups that can get the vaccine right now. Be patient and keep trying to get it. And I think we'll see in the next few months, once we get through this phase 1B of the vaccination plan, and we start to go to the general population, we'll start to see how well that process goes and how soon everybody can get it. I think that they're thinking that everybody will be able to get it by probably around mid-June. I think I saw another couple questions pop up here. Let me see what they, I think I saw one. So there was a recent story about people getting COVID-19 after being fully vaccinated. is this a true story? So it is possible to still get the virus after being vaccinated. As we said, it's not 100% effective. It's 95% effective, which means that there's still those 1 in 20 people, if they get exposed to COVID, could still get the virus. Although it is possible, but it's very rare for that to happen. We'll start to see, though, too. I think everybody's probably heard of these variants that we've been talking about in the news, about how those affect the vaccine. Right now, it's thought that the main variants, that one from the United Kingdom and the other one in South Africa, are fully protected from or with the current vaccines, with the Moderna and the Pfizer. My concern is there's this newer one from Brazil, which is a very small amount of what we're seeing in the U.S., but that one has some issues with immune response. But I think still, even if that's the case, if that one ends up that the vaccines don't work very well, I know they're already starting to work on the consideration for boosters specific to those variants of concern. And I think even those people would still get a much milder form of COVID. So I think that's about all I've got for you guys. Thanks for having me, and I'll take any other questions right now if there's any other questions that you have in mind.
All right, so I see someone did ask, and I think you might have addressed it, that you'll see this turning into like an annual flu shot. You'll get your flu shot and you'll get your COVID shot. That's kind of maybe the future.
That's my suspicion. I think because of the way that the body's response to COVID, to the other coronaviruses, tends to drop off after about that 3 to 6 month period, I expect it's going to end up being a yearly vaccine. It's still too early to say for sure, but that's definitely my strong opinion.
I know one question that I got of folks are talking or asking about face coverings after vaccination. Is that still going to be mask policy? What's that looking like?
Yeah, so I think masking after vaccines is going to be here for a while. I think until we see the number of cases drop off pretty drastically. And that's just because as of right now, we think that the vaccine is going to keep you from passing it on, but we don't have the science yet to back that up. So, they're looking now at people who've been vaccinated to see if they can still carry the virus or not, and if they can be contagious while still being protected from clinical illness. So I ultimately think that we're going to find that the vaccines break the cycle of transmission. But for now, it's best to still wear a mask, after being vaccinated when you're in public. And I think even if nothing else, like let's say we find out that you're vaccinated, you're unlikely to be contagious. We're really all in this together. So I think everybody, being a good role model for other people, even if you're not going to be contagious to others, I think that's still important. So let's say we find out next week that somebody who's who's been vaccinated can't be contagious with the virus, then I'm still going to go out and wear a mask, because I know that, one, I'm going to get funny looks if I don't have a mask on, and two, I know that at least I'm being a good model for other people, because it's really just one of those things that we've got to pull together as a community to get through this.
I am not seeing any other questions. Does anyone else have questions out there? I see some thumbs up, and it looks like, we really appreciate you coming here. There's a lot of myths going out around there, and I know a lot of folks are really anxious to get this vaccination, so that's encouraging that it is coming. And I'm not seeing any questions. Any questions out there? Feel free, you can raise your hand too. I see clapping and thumbs up and all that kind of stuff, so that's good. Any questions for Ann, that since we jumped from one topic to the other? Sally, are you getting any questions?
No questions on my end.
All right. Well, then I will pull up our slide for our next presentation. So next month, we will, if I can get it to go, next month we're doing a little different spin, and we're going to have Dan Sowery from the Ohio EPA, and he's going to be here talking about the environmental side. So I know we've had a lot of requests to do some environmental focus at our Safety Council, and 2 years ago, I think we had those quarterly meetings where we're going to try to hit a lot of it in one meeting. So we're going to be talking about EPA violations. We're going to talk about fluorescent light bulb disposal, batteries, electronic, aerosol cans, a lot of the universal waste, things like that. So put that on your calendar. Just like always, we're keeping this third Wednesday of each month. If you have questions, again, Carrie Gray, feel free to send them to me or Sally, and one of us will help you get an answer. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a nice February. Hopefully it warms up a little bit, and we'll have some sunshine by that next meeting. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of the day.